Hello everyone, this is Alex, and today I'm doing a quick video to show you something I've been working on for some of my orchestration students. And it's an orchestration guide, something that I think can help you make the right choices when you're doing orchestration. And it's a type of tool and content that I thought was missing online. So let me show this to you right now. Okay, so here is the guide. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We have the three main families for the orchestra. We have the strings, we have the woodwinds, and the brass, and they're all lined up in terms of register. So the instruments aligned with the treble clef are the one playing in that register, and the ones aligned with the bass clef are the one playing in this register. And I divided this section with the most used instrument in these sections. We have the violins, the viola, the cello, and the double bass. In the woodwind section, we have a lot more instruments. So we have the piccolo and the flute, which are in the same family, the oboe and the English horn, which are in the same family as well, the clarinet and the bass clarinet in the same family as well, and the bassoon, contrabassoon in the same family as well. These all goes together because they provide a different range for the main instruments of the woodwinds, which are the flute, the oboe, clarinet, and bassoon. And these other instruments, the piccolo, the English horn, the bass clarinet, the contrabassoon, offer this extra range to the woodwind section, which I believe for modern orchestration is quite important. Now in the brass section, we have the trumpets, the French horn, the trombones, tenor and bass, and the tuba. So first, let's start with my strings. So the violins, I decided to put violin 1 and violin 2 in the same idea because to me, they represent the melodic foundation of your orchestration. Whether it is in their highest register or their lowest register, the violins are quite flexible in presenting a melody. And you can use them in octaves, you can use them in doublings, you can use them in harmony by thirds or by sixths. So this is a basic usage for the violins. Next, we go to the violas, a warm melodic or harmonic bridge. A warm melodic because they have a low C string, which is lower than the violins. So this warm melodic sound that you can get with the violas is really something that is typical of this instrument. And also the harmonic bridge. So this idea that the violas link the violins and the cellos together is very important with this instrument. So this is something that you need to take into consideration while you're writing for violas. Then the cellos, a rich mid-range, expressive or light bass. So it's a little bit more complex here. A rich mid-range of the string section. So this means that the cello can play up here. And all of this area within the cello is very expressive because it's on its highest string. So this one is very important for the highest cello, and it's very expressive as well. Or light bass. This one is very important because the cello, actually when you're writing for string quartet, the cello is your lowest instrument, so it's acting as your bass. But in a string orchestra, the light bass that it can provide is because there is a much more deeper bass that you can obtain with the double bass here. So when you don't have the double bass and you just have your cello who's doing the bass line, you get a lighter sound. And this is something that's very important with the cellos and a role they can have within your orchestra is when your double bass is not present. Now, if we decide to bring in the double bass and what it provides within the string orchestra, it really anchors the sound. So this is really the feeling that you have when there's double bass in your string orchestra. The sound is much more solid. There's a firm fundamental in the bottom of your chord. And this is what the double bass is made for. Notice that what I present here for the strings are more about their role, like anchoring the sound, a melodic foundation, a warm melodic or harmonic bridge. And this is really because the strings are homogenetic sound. They sound the same, they should sound unified. And when we go now to talk about the woodwinds, it's quite different here because every instrument of the woodwind section sounds different. Of course, if you pair them with the instruments from their family, they blend much better together, but all of these instruments, flute, oboe, clarinet, and bassoon, are quite different, have quite a different timbre. So this is where this guide gets really important, and I think can help you to understand the role of the woodwinds in your orchestra, is with these little ideas. So the piccolo piercing brilliance. If you want something that's really stands out in this upper register, that's piercing, it's really this piercing brilliance is a very good way to describe the piccolo. You just have one piccolo in this upper register and you cannot miss it. It's really above there and it's piercing the sound of the whole orchestra. Then the flute, airiness and clarity. Airiness is such a good way to describe the flute. This kind of sound is typical of the flute. And when you decide to blend your violins with the flute, you really get this kind of airy violin sound, which is amazing. And clarity, it's bring a certain light to the sound, and it's see that it can pairs really well with the trumpet as well, with the brightness and the brilliance of the trumpet. So as we start to present all of these instruments, it's really amazing because you can now make links between some of them and start to see how these interact with each other. But let's not get too much ahead of ourselves. Let's keep presenting these. So the oboe now, precision and expression. The oboe's got this it's kind of sound that once it starts, it gives a lot of precision to the sound. It's not without reason that people tune with the oboe in the orchestra. It's because the sound can really pierce the whole orchestra. And expression also, it's a very expressive instrument. Now you can get this same sort of expression and precision, but a fifth below with the English horn. So a little bit more mellow tones. So this kind of expression and round sound that the double reed can provide with the oboe, you really get it even more with the English horn. And English horns and violas pair so well together. The viola can play a little bit lower, but really the English horn has this warmth that you get with the violas. You can find it with the English horn as well. Next up, the clarinet, smooth, versatile color. It is smooth because really it can blend with anything. It's got a kind of round sound, so it can provide support to any of your lines. So the cello line, the viola lines, it does play up to a quite high register here on the treble clef. But when you double a line with the clarinet, you get really this round sound that's hiding behind, that's giving support to whatever line you're pairing it with. So this smoothness is quite important here because you have less definition than this one here. The oboe is very precise, very characteristic. The clarinet is a little bit more incognito, so smooth and versatile color as well, because you can play in any dynamic, in any register with the clarinet. So it can really stand out for something, or it can just act as an accompaniment, and it's got such a wide range, so it's a beautiful instrument. Now in this diagram below the clarinet, we are diving into the bass section of the woodwinds. We have the bass clarinet here, which is actually an octave below the clarinet in B flat here, and it provides this deep supportive sound. It's quite deep, but still with this smooth and versatile color that you get with the clarinet. So something you can think about. These all pair together, so this means that they are linked in the characteristic that I'm presenting for each. So make sure you keep that in mind. So what's great also with the bass clarinet is that it can play with the clarinets, it can play as well with the English horn, and it can play with the bassoons and the contrabassoons. It can act in different roles, so it's a beautiful instrument. Now getting back into the double reeds with the bassoon and the contrabassoon. The bassoon first, expressive low end and precision. I love to think of my bassoon as my cello in the woodwind section. It's expressive low end and precision that you get from the oboe as well, because the oboe is also a double reed. So that's why I used again this idea of precision, but expressive low end also because there's the expressiveness of the double reeds that you get also with the bassoons. But also like the cello, if you play the bassoon in this really high register around here or here, then it's going to sound very expressive. You know that the Rite of Spring from Stravinsky starts with this IC here. But also the bassoon can play down here, the low B flat, that's the lowest note. So it's quite an impressive register, just like the cello. Now for the contrabassoon, one of my favorite instruments, precise sub-harmonics. So again, the precision is very characteristic of the contrabassoon because of the double reed, but subharmonics. So the subharmonics is actually the section that covers the double bass and the tuba. So these precise subharmonics, you don't quite get such precision with the double basses, just because they're string instrument. The attack with the bowing creates some noise in these lowest, very low notes. But with the contrabassoon, you can add a little bit more of a precision within this, and the fact that it's only one instrument, the contrabassoon, as opposed to the double basses, which are usually a couple within the orchestra, then it just helps to anchor the sound as well, like the double bass are doing, but with a little bit more precision. So I love to think when you're making these decisions, when you're pairing different instruments together, you add these different effects together. So if I have my double basses, I anchor my sound. If I add a contrabassoon, then I add some precision. Then if I would add my tuba, I would add a deep and resonant foundation. So add to some deepness in the sound and some resonance within this. Now, if I decide to take off my contrabassoon, at some point I would just be left with my double bass and my tuba. Then I would have an anchored sound with a deep and resonant foundation. This is so cool with this kind of diagram, is that it can help you focus more on the effect that you're having when you're adding or taking off some instruments. And this is something that people don't know. They just say add in a piccolo and then add in a French horn and add in a cello. They think about the instruments, but they're not thinking about what they're doing when they're adding these instruments. So I sure hope this will be useful. So lastly, let's talk about the brass and what I wrote for the brass. It's a little bit more simple here. We have the trumpet, brightness and brilliance. So we talked about this with the piccolo. We get the same kind of brilliance. It's just a little bit in a lower register. And the brightness as well. The brightness is very typical of the trumpet, and it's the brighter instrument, certainly the brightest instrument of the whole orchestra. We have also the same with the trombones, also they're a very bright instrument. But this idea of the brightness for the trumpet, it's because in its higher register, it really has this highest harmonics. So it really brighten up the sound of the whole orchestra when you get the trumpets coming in. Now the French horn, warmth and depth. Warmth is so important with the French horn. Just add a couple of French horn behind your string section. Since they're around the middle C, it just provides this very rich mid-range sound that nobody else can do within the rest of the orchestra. And the idea of depth is quite important with the French horn, and you can see a little bit of link here with the tuba, depth and deep and resonant foundation for the tuba. That's why I love to pair French horn with tubas, because they share this kind of deep sound that the hard brass, the trumpet and the trombones, don't quite have. The hard brass, trumpet and trombone are a little bit more bright and clear sound, and the French horn and tuba is a little bit deeper and rounder sound. It's like they sound a little bit more muffled or from afar than the trumpets and trombones, which are more in your face, you know? Now the trombone, tenor and bass, I combine tenor and bass trombones because yes, they are often different instruments and they play on different staff, but they do share this idea of a rich, sonorous timbre. Tenor trombone, well, it says it's a tenor instrument. It pairs very well with English horns, it pairs very well with the cellos. And the bass trombone, well, it pairs well with the bass instruments, the bassoons, the contrabassoon sometimes, and of course, the double bass here. And finally, the tuba, a deep resonant foundation. We talked about this. It's really an instrument that you want to pair with this instrument. You can also pair the bass trombone with the tuba. It's really, really effective. Or send it an octave lower than the bass trombone or the tenor trombone, depending on what you have. Just like you might do with the cellos and the double bass, have one cello, let's say here, and then the double bass down here. So see that putting words on these different instruments and what they provide to the orchestra or your orchestration is very important. So more than just the register and what these instruments can play, you need to understand what they bring to the table. It's like you have a bunch of characters in a play, but you don't have their personality, you don't have their background, you don't know anything about that. You just see them as they are, you know what their name is, but you don't know what they can bring to this play. So orchestration is really like you're in a play, and it's always the same characters that you bring in at different times. It can be an interesting way to put it, right? So anyway, this guide is free. You can download it below. That's how nice I am. You can print it, you can put it on your desktop, you can put it on your wall, in your kitchen or in your bathroom. And then by using this, you can make sure that whenever you're composing, you're aware of everything you're doing in the orchestration process at every step. Now, I hope this helped. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you want to have access to more tools for orchestrating. And thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.